Hey beautiful, welcome back. There are 6 mistakes that I'm going to be talking about today. The first one is creating holes in your locks while you are retying. Most people that retie their locks themselves are likely to create holes in their locks. If you are not conscious of the way that you are starting your interlocking, okay, some people believe that the way that you create hole in your lock is if you do not go in a different direction from where you stopped the previous interlock. I don't know about that. I'm not sure because I interlock my hair myself, and what I have noticed that caused hole in my lock is if I'm going to be demonstrating this. If you are starting your lock, let's say I'm going to use this as an example. I interlocked the root of my hair recently, so like almost 3 weeks ago, and so I do not have enough root hair. But the ways that I have noticed it is possible for you to create hole in your lock is if when you are starting your interlock this way, as you are seeing, and then you just insert the pin and start interlocking without making sure that you have created the space, the available space, by using your needle to touch the last point, which is here, the last point of the interlock. The last point of the interlock you made last time, that is where the knot stopped. You pull the needle from the root of your hair up to where the knot stopped last time and make sure that there's no space above it, okay? If you are able to do this, then you are likely to avoid creating hole in your locks. I have noticed 1 or 2 of my locks that have, soft parts along the length of the lock, and it is something that is caused by what I just explained. Over time, that particular spot is going to become the weak point of that strand of lock, okay? And at the long run, you'll be able to put your hand or anything through that spot, because while the other part of the lock is hardened, that particular place is going to remain soft, okay? But don't be alarmed, such thing has a way of correcting it, okay? I have a video somewhere, I'm going to put it up here, where I showed you guys how you can correct hole that is made in your lock, okay? Number 2 retie mistake to avoid is for you not to wash your hair before you interlock it, or even before you retwist, okay? And then you might be like, of course you're supposed to wash your hair before you do your interlock, okay? This is what happened to me, and I'm sure that 1 or 2 people must have experienced it, okay? It's like I interlocked my hair like a week after I washed it, like almost a week, okay? And so by the time I was ready to do my washing again, it was like a week after. I felt it was still clean because it was less than 8 days, so I decided to interlock the hair. And by the time I was ready to wash my hair again, it was like a week interval, and lo and behold, when I finished, like shortly after I finished, I noticed that my hair has become so rough again, okay? A lot of hair has slipped out, few strands that made the hair not to look neat anymore, and I was so perplexed that what have I done to my hair? I know you probably must have experienced the same thing, so it is advisable for you to make sure that you wash your hair before you do your retie, or you retie your hair just immediately on that same day that you wash it, or the following day, okay? And number 3 retie mistake to avoid is to make sure that you do not interlock your hair too often. This is going to create a kind of tension on the strands of your hair. If you have Microlocs, know that the strand of hair that is being packed into one lock is quite small, okay? And any strain or pulling that you do so often is going to affect those strands of hair, and it is also likely to cause you pain. When I started off, my locks were quite bigger than they are now. I noticed that when I interlock the hair, it was not really so neat. It does not come out looking so neat. Okay, it's probably because of the texture of my hair, because we all have different texture, of course. And then when I reduced the size of my locks and they became smaller, the way they are now, I noticed that after retying, it becomes neater. You have few strands of hair that you are interlocking, okay, and so the possibility of any strand escaping while you are interlocking is very little. Okay, another thing is that the effect of retying your hair too often is not going to be visible to you immediately. It takes a while. Okay, it takes a while for you to see the effect, because the strands that are popping off or cutting off gradually becomes more the more often that you retie your hair. So before you know what is happening, you would have lost so much strands of hair, and then that is what sometimes causes alopecia. Okay, of course alopecia has a possible health issue, but it is possible for you to impose it on yourself, okay, by retying your hair too often. Okay, and then another thing is that retying your hair too often might not have effect on those areas where your hair is tightly packed, because the way our hair is on the head is not the same. The density is not the same at every point of our head. So the areas where the density is low, you're going to be seeing the effects in those areas, you know, faster than any other parts. Okay, and then the fourth retie mistake to avoid is the reverse of that: interlocking your hair far apart. Okay, the time that you interlock is just too far apart. Okay, this particular point does not have any effect on people that carry, you know, traditional locks. Okay, those are the people that the hair that is being packed into one lock is much more than Microloc. Okay, it is even advisable that you know, go far apart when you are retwisting traditional lock, your lock actually. But when it comes to Microloc, it is not advisable, especially if you have a particular type of hair texture. If your hair is sparse and it is of soft texture and it's not dense, okay, you cannot go far apart. By the time you go far apart and you have so much undergrowth, the undergrowth is likely to become thin as time goes on. It's likely to, like, you know, slip out, and then by the time you're ready to interlock, you notice that you have to like pull and, you know, start establishing your grid over again. And when you're doing that, of course you're going to be creating the line over again, and then, you know, cutting and splitting your hair. In that process, there are some strands of hair that are going to become thinner, you know, and because you are going to be unconsciously take some hair from some strands of hair to add to the other one in the process of you re-establishing your grid, if you have one. Even if you don't, while you're trying to like retie your hair, there is, you know, I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. That is why you see some hair, they thin out at the end of the day, while the base of this side of the hair might be thin, but you see a particular part along the length, they become thin. You know, that is as a result of you removing strands of hair from that lock or even adding to that lock. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. This is something that I have noticed before. Okay, you know, the moment I discovered it, I started noticing it and I became conscious of it. So I've been avoiding it ever since. Okay, so you just have to know how well your hair grows, so you know when you are supposed to do your retie. Okay, like you have an established time that you are supposed to do your retie. Okay, there are some times that the hair grow faster. There's some, you know, weather that encourages hair growth. Some people believe that by the time the root of their hair is like 3 inches long, then they should retie. Some 2 inches, some 4 inches, depending on you, okay? But for micro locks, for those people that have dense hair, thick hair, for micro locks, it is possible for you to go far apart, okay? But of course not too far, because there are some hair that grow out of their lock. Like, to me, unfortunately, that is the type of hair that I have. My hair grows out of my lock a lot. If you have dense hair and it grows out of your lock, that you might not want to go too far apart in between your retie. It's just going to create more work for you, and if someone does your retie for you, then you're going to be paying more money, extra money. Your retie is going to be more expensive at that particular time. And then the fifth retie mistake you want to avoid is to retie your locks too tightly. Oh boy, that thing is painful. Okay, it is painful. It's just going to be popping the strands of your locks here and there, and before you know it, you're losing hair. The hair is thinning out and you're having breakage all over the place. So please avoid that. All right, the sixth retie mistake that you want to avoid is for you to retie your lock when it is dry. If you retie your hair while dry, you're likely going to be popping so much strands of hair, because when your hair is dry, the elasticity kind of reduce, okay, and you will not be able to stretch it that much. The hair is prone to breakage depending on the texture of your hair, okay? There's some texture that breaks so much when it is dry, and there's some texture that don't break that much but they still do. So retying when it is dry, it's even painful to do that, okay? So you want to make sure that you moisturize your hair before you retie. You moisturize with water and any other thing that you use before you retie your lock. This is just going to ensure that you keep and nurture healthy hair, okay? And it is only healthy hair that produce healthy locks. All right, so thank you guys once again for tuning in. Don't forget to like this video. Stay blessed, stay beautiful, and I'll see you in my next video.